blame this on Cam because when Cam goes to practice, bad things happen. But let's we get this news that old Dallas Wilson is in a boot cast. I don't know if you have the exact details on the type of material that is surrounding his leg at this very moment, but maybe you
It's
can.
a cast.
It is a cast. Okay.
I can tell you, it is a cast. So,
Yeah, we can definitely tell you it's a cast.
So it's Cascade.
Dave knows this story, but I can't tell too much about it. But so just kind of giving.
I heard he did a front flip off the field goal post. Is that true or not? I'm kidding.
I heard they could cut the whole thing off and give him a bionic leg too, from what I'm told. But no, in all seriousness, so kind of telling the reporter side of it with this situation, at least from how I found out, it wasn't like we were scooping for information, right? Like this we just kind of found out. And, there was a press conference today in the building, and that's kind of where I'll leave it with that. But it is a cast. I can confirm that they don't think it's a serious thing. I don't know the exact injury. Don't know when it happened. I didn't watch the receivers at practice yesterday, but the other guys who did said he was there. Like he wasn't included on practice reports or anything like that. And again, that's something that me and the other sites after practice we collab about who's there and who's not, what position group. Did you notice anyone missing? And no one said anything about Dallas Wilson. So unless someone was just hiding it, then whatever. But he was practicing on Saturday, so something happened within the last couple of days. All I know is they don't think it's serious. He is going to be out for a couple weeks, kind of a precautionary thing. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play against Long Island because it's Long Island. You're not playing a Power 5 opponent. You're not playing Miami. There's no reason to rush your guys early. But the part of it that at least concerns me, when I'm told that it's not a serious injury and it's precautionary, is the fact he's in a cast. That's different than a boot. A boot is whatever. You have a sprained ankle, maybe a couple days.
A cast you can't take off until you cut it off.
Yeah,
correct.
He's in a cast, and so that's where my concern comes from. Is like, you maybe it isn't a serious injury. I don't know what the injury is. Maybe and maybe there's a Hightop fan who happens to be a medical expert or a doctor who can give examples of leg injuries where they're in a cast and it's not super serious. But that's kind of, at least from my perspective, and maybe I'm way off base. I don't want to say I'm an expert or anything, but the fact that it is a cast and it's not just a boot, that's kind of where I go, okay, what's kind of going on here? The other issue is UF, obviously, and everyone knows this, and it's kind of been a gripe between fans and media in some ways, is not necessarily blaming UF about this, but they keep their injuries close to chest. They just don't talk about it, and they don't have to. There's not a rule in the NCAA that says you have to publicly disclose specific injuries and things like that. They don't have to put out an injury report until week 3. So we haven't gotten our media schedule yet for next week. Billy usually speaks on Monday.
Yeah.
So I imagine that'll be one of the first questions that's asked is, the report about Dallas's availability. Don't expect too much specifics with answers is what I'll say. With if Billy speaks on Monday and if we get to ask that, don't expect too much of a just really anything. I just would not expect. Yeah. I just wouldn't expect it, but we'll see. But it's just that's the thing that kind of concerns me, is the fact that it is a cast and it's not a boot. So I try not to hit the panic button over things like this because it's fall camp and we've seen guys who we think it's a serious injury and it ends up not being that serious. Or Gator Nation, let's be honest, this is not exactly a tame fan base. The little list of news freaks everyone out, and the fact that it feels like injuries are kind of piling on the second week of fall camp just adds to it.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to hit the panic button or anything, but you can't ignore the fact that he's in a cast. He's not in a boot. What exactly does that mean?
So Dave and I were talking earlier about this because Dave, we kind of heard about this news before it hit the airwaves, as we usually do. And so then Dave and I yell at each other whose fault it is, and we get all nervous, and then we calm down. But his frustration, and again, like, because we kind of know how it was unfolded, is like, why does it take so long for us to hear about these things? And look, I kind of told him, I was like, honestly, if I'm Bailey, I wouldn't want anybody to know what was going on either. I mean, it's not again, that's why they don't have to release an injury report until the SEC matchup. So why, it's all gamemanship. I know we as the fans, we feel invested. We feel like we've put, we've got stock in this. So we want to know what's going on with our prized possessions. And I get it, but at the same time, I also understand like not wanting to share any of the information. And then someone may ask, well, what is knowing if Dallas wasn't hurt or isn't hurt? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Maybe because if he is out for more than weeks, people can kind of overlook him and start looking farther in the depth chart. If you keep people thinking that he can come back, then you've got to respect that and you've got to prepare for him. So that part I do understand. Firm handshake. Again, we don't know how, we're not clarifying, we don't know how much, I don't know the word I'm looking for here, but the professionalism we've got from the chat, but I feel pretty confident in our group of people here. Says the wife says some cast are put on to keep anything serious from happening while the minor injury heals. So I assume his wife must be in the...
That's what I was told too, that it's a minor injury and they're just being overly precautious and not wanting to force anything. But again, that's kind of like where they've done it with Boots before. I wonder just why the cast now. So again, like from what I've heard, it's not a serious injury again. Couple of weeks. They play Long Island to open the season. You don't want to risk it anyways. But that would just be like kind of if I had a chance to, if I was a medical expert or if I had like a one-on-one with whoever the trainer or the doctor is, the clarification question would be why not a boot, just for, I guess, further information and clarification.
Maybe Dallas
I think adding to it too.
Maybe he's a hyper one.
Adding to it too is
can't keep him tame. Put a cast on.
It's just one of those things where we're never going to get, I think, the full answer.
Yeah.
And that's just kind of is what it is, other than, this could be something where in the middle of the season, everyone forgets that something like this happened.
For sure.
Or it turns into, I think, like a worst case scenario. Just remember when Asa Turner hurt his hamstring against Miami, it just was like, oh, well, we didn't hear anything about it. Oh, well, nothing was brought up. Oh, nothing was brought up. Next thing you know, he's not playing the entire season and applying for a medical red shirt and ends up not being on the team. And again, I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen with Dallas Wilson. I think it's a serious injury.
The difference is the quality of player. If our prize possession's not playing, we're going to be, yo.
Yeah.
What's my dude at?
That's kind of the argument of not discussing the injuries and keeping it a secret is the speculation is only going to keep going. And the longer that something happens, the more it happens and the longer it goes on. It's just the reactions are going to get worse. And now, but the other side of it, and I know you mentioned the Netflix thing when you were talking with Eric, and a big part of that, at least from the Billy side of it, if you watch the episode, was Billy talks about just doesn't listen to the outside noise. He has his stuff that he does. He trusts his process. And part of that too is they don't freak out over injuries. They don't discuss it, and that's final. And he kind of gave us a little hint of that when we asked him about DJ throwing on Saturday. He said, well, I think it was good for you guys to see it. We know what we've been getting out of him in summer camp. So I think that's kind of the same way with Dallas is they don't really care that people are panicking about it because they know what the injury is. They know the severity of it, and they trust their trainers and their doctors and everyone else around them that, if they say he's going to be fine in a couple weeks, then he's going to be fine in a couple weeks. And that's the final say. So I think that it's concerning, but you can also you have trust their system enough to where they're not freaking out over it.
The other part of it too is, and again, I've learned this with management, and I think this plays into that factor a little bit, where I had a great manager he was the director, and we would have to, I've said this before, when you're making the schedule, you have to account for people calling out or missing. And so you have to make the schedule based on there being a 20% people of not showing up on particular days, especially on Friday, right? Especially on payday. People want to call out and go party. So with that in mind, the reason why there's no panic is because they know there's going to be some sort of attrition. Now, not that you want it to happen, but you have to operate and function as if like, hey, the reason why we recruit the way we recruit, the reason why we develop the way we develop, because these things are inevitable. And we're gonna get into it here just a bit because everyone loves to blame, and I know the timelines have been going nuts blaming Miles on this and others that it's the strength and conditioning's fault that whatever happened. But again, this is just a part of the game. They're going out there, and look, here's the pro to this, right? we've heard about practice amping up. We've heard them saying SAP say we want to make these guys' life a living hell. Well, with that's going to come injuries. They're playing as if it was a game. If this happened in the middle of the game, I don't think anybody would say anything because it's part of the. Well, they're playing the game day in and day out. And look, we can kind of transition into it now because obviously it's a big conversation of, is it strength and conditioning? Now, I actually made a phone call to a buddy of mine that has a history in this, not just a comment, which I do. Thank you to, I can't remember his name, but to his wife for that information. And I said, look, do you think this is a problem? Do you think that there is some legitimacy on the strength and conditioning being a factor? And there's two parts to it. One is like, look, the reason you put on more muscle and the reason why you work out the way that you do is to help surround those ligaments and those joints, to support them. So you don't have to exert them as much. You're not exerting as much muscle because you have more of it. The other part of it, though, you can put on muscle too fast sometimes. And there's some comment or thought that when you are getting bigger, those joints get a little more wound up, a little more tight, and they're more likely to go certain directions. So there's all that into it. And the other part of it is obviously your body is growing and having to put on more muscle and learning to function with that. And this team looks phenomenal. And you can almost think that maybe the strength and conditioning is so good. And what I mean by that is that the process of working out, eating, hydrating is at such a premier level that these guys are putting on ridiculous gains in a short amount of time, which is great. But there's some consequences that go alongside that. Dave, I'll let you go because I know you're big into the field. Everyone wants to be a workout expert on the timeline. Again, my summary is I'm not. This is not a strength and conditioning issue. It's just part of the game. But there always is probably a little bit of truth to everything. But I don't think it's a negative issue.
Yeah, I mean, I've delved into bodybuilding when I was in my 20s. I've probably shown people photos of back when I was in my 20s and all that. And the thing about bodybuilding is you're not really doing a lot of cardio. You're doing very light cardio because the heavier the cardio, the more muscle mass that you're going to lose. You're going to become into a hypothermic state, whatever they call it. So most bodybuilders, what they do is they do light cardio. They work out, eat a lot of calories, but the main thing that they do is they give their body rest. Like you've got to give your muscles rest for them to build. And in this case, I think not necessarily is it strength and conditioning. I think what happens is these players, they go to strength and conditioning and they do their workouts, they do what they're told from the staff, they go to their practices, but then you see like some extra training from them. They'll go to an extra trainer or something like that, or go to an extra camp or something like that and try to get in more training. And I think sometimes, in a way, you could overtrain your body. Now, these kids are very young. They're 18, 19, and 20. So their testosterone levels are way higher than somebody like us, like at least for me and somebody in their 30s. So their bodies are going to grow at a faster rate. The only time that you would ever really get into a point to where you would tear a muscle really fast or anything like that is if you're not hydrating properly. You're taking testosterone, steroids, your muscles are growing at a rapid rate and your body just can't keep up. How those get teared as well. And also, supplementing, glucosamine, taking any kind of supplements to help you in your body. I'm not talking about like, explode or any of that kind of crap that was back there back in the day. I'm talking about like vitamins, glucosamine, just keeping up with your body. I think that is a main issue with that as well. I mean, I don't know what they do in those training rooms or how they teach them. And I'm not going to say that they don't do their job or anything like that. But I will say that sometimes you can overtrain and it can cause injuries. Now, in this case, luckily these injuries have been minor. I think the Eugene was like a hamstring thing. And then Mazel's was a little bit minor too. And so was Dallas. Me and Cam talked about the cast. And I think that he got a cast so we could sign it and put our autographs on it. But other than
that's a great point. I didn't even think that's why I got it cast. Everyone's freaked out. That's 100% what it was.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we solved the issue right there. But no, I mean, like I think that these kids really want to be good at what they do, and I think that their mind and is, hey, look, the more work I put in. I mean, you heard Kobe Bryant talk about it. Like if he saw somebody putting in more work than him, he felt like he had to do more than them, so he would stay out there longer. And I think kind of that mindset is there, but at the same time, when you're really heavy into strength training and you played the game of football, you gotta give your body rest. And I'm not saying that they're doing that. That could not even be the issue, but there are times where players, and we've seen it all across the SEC. I mean, Tennessee's got a lot of injuries right now.
Yep.
LSU's dealing with their quarterback that just went down.
We'll talk about that a little bit.
it's happening everywhere. But in that case of strength and conditioning, I wouldn't think that the strength and conditioning would be too hectic for the players. I would say I wouldn't think they would put them purposely in a position to get hurt per se. But if there is some extra training going on, what are they doing and how are they monitoring that? I think that's something that's got to be looked at.
In summary, they
And part of it
play a
too,
violent game. Go ahead,
and,
Ken.
and I'll add this too. They just got into full pads, I think, this week. So when you get into full pads,
Yeah,
and even when you wear uppers and you're doing a little bit more contact, you're going from the entire offseason where you're just working out. Maybe you're throwing passes on air with the receivers and quarterbacks, or you're doing drop back drills to get your footwork done. You're just doing conditioning and weight room stuff, and then you go right into hitting. There's going to be bumps and bruises with that. There's going to be some getting used to it and everything like that. And it doesn't matter if you're a 15-year veteran in the NFL or if you're an 8-year-old playing football for the first time. You're going to get bumps and bruises. You're going to get hurt playing this game. And that's why I don't think it's necessarily a strength and conditioning thing. Because, again, we've seen bad strength and conditioning coaches at Florida. We've seen the players are not afraid to talk about bad strength and conditioning, especially in the early part of Billy's tenure. And we haven't heard anything about that with Tyler Miles. And so if it was the same injury happening over and over again with every single player, that's where I would
yeah,
get concerned. These are not the same injuries, and um, they're different. I think the part of the panic is because it's the receiver room too, because Trey goes down, Mizell goes down, and now Wilson goes down. But none of those are long term injuries, and I think.
Whoa. Hold on. You can't say goes down, okay? Why Mizell and
All right,
Eugene are not in
sorry.
the same category.
Sideline.
Dude, you were just sniping cats. Just poof, poof, poof.
Listen, I got
You guys
humble
cam, the
everyone
whole team's
after.
not playing.
yeah.
Eric fired everyone up. I'm here to humble everyone and bring
Golly.
I'm the negative journalist. Okay, I'm the big
Where's
bad
Dylan?
media that.
Yeah. All you gotta say is just everybody's out, and then all
Yeah.
the like the opposing
Holy
fans
crap.
from
Oh,
all the opposing fans from every team will just talk a whole bunch of dirt, and then find out that they're still playing against them.
Aiden Warner is taking snaps at receivers. That just
oh.
everything that you need to see right there. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. But I think part of that too is because it's the receiver room and it's three guys who I think people were that either were
We're excited
penciled
about.
in to start or were
Yeah.
anticipating to start. And the fact that it's Saturday and then was it Tuesday or Wednesday? Now we're all three of them in the span of 4 days are sidelined because of injuries. I think that that's where part of the panic too comes in. But it's I don't blame strength and conditioning for this because we've seen bad strength and conditioning programs, especially at the University of Florida in the last 10 years. There have been some really crappy ones who don't prioritize the wrong thing or right thing. They put the players in bad positions. They don't get them ready SEC shape. And it's been a complete flip with Tyler Miles. And I know people look at the injury reports from last year, and especially they look at that Texas game. And listen, strength and conditioning doesn't always prevent freak injuries, especially
Right.
when you're playing in Jacksonville with that crappy field where it seems like everyone
Yeah.
gets hurt playing in that field every year. But freak injuries happen, and sometimes strength and conditioning can't always prevent that. And I think Florida got the negative side of freak injuries last year. This year, I don't think it's necessarily. I don't like to blame strength and conditioning for freak injuries that kind of happen like that, and especially minor ones where they're not expected to miss a whole lot of time in fall camp. It's just unfortunate that it happened. Two of them happened on Saturday, and now one of them's happened within the last couple of days, and they're all three guys who either are
Are
supposed to
important.
start
Yeah.
or are on the two deep.
Look, I think that for me, the strength and conditioning showed last year. You don't close the season the way that you did without that strength and conditioning. Because I know where it was 2 years ago, where we couldn't hold our breath in the fourth quarter, and we were just getting beat by everybody, mauled by everybody. We had the atrocious shot of Miguel Mitchell getting leveled. I think it was by Luther Burden, the Mizzou wide receiver, when Miguel had the jump. I've seen I've seen the other side, and I'll sit where I'm sitting and keep it rocking and rolling here.